Hi, Keri. Welcome,
Hi.
everybody. So I'm so excited. We are having a conversation today for World Health Day, which is something that the World Health Organization does every year. What I didn't know, and after doing some research, is that every year they pick a topic. And this year, the World Health Organization picked a topic about mothers and children, young children. They call it Healthy Beginnings, Hopeful Futures. And this year, it wasn't just about physical health or your body, but it was also about mental health. And as I was reading more, I thought, I know the perfect person to speak about this. My friend Keri, who is a mental health counselor, but also has a huge background in production. So, before we get into this, we have 30 minutes. I'm going to let Keri introduce herself and give her elevator speech. If you are a theater student, you know exactly what an elevator speech is. It's basically the time it takes to ride up an elevator and you introduce yourself. So, Keri, will you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. I'm Keri Parker. I got my bachelor's from UCF in stage management, and that's when I met Elisa. And Jean Columbus was the mentor at the time. And so we've bonded through that Jean has been our mentor this whole entire time. I then also went on to work in educational theater mostly. I married military, and so that kind of changed my path a little. I left theater. I switched gears into my second choice career, which is clinical mental health counseling. And I'm on my path to licensure right now. I have spent about 5 years in the field. I've done all sorts of settings, acute, inpatient, psychiatric for adults. I spent a year working in corrections. I have done a year in intensive outpatient, and now I'm at residential psychiatric care for children.
That's incredible. You mentioned, so we went to UCF. We both have
Mhm.
degrees in stage management, which
Mhm.
we'll get there in a second. I was thinking today about our first year acting class. And could you ever imagine that you and I would be
Here.
chatting in a very public setting
Uh-huh.
after that acting class that many
Yes.
years ago?
Yes. Bless Kate. Bless her heart for having to tolerate us. Yeah. Because it was all tech and stage managers, and none of us wanted to be there. And yet she had to do it. And I love her so much. But yeah, and it was a great journey and it was super fun. And the whole entire goal was to make sure that we empathized, because that's what it was truly about, with the actors' roles and careers and the task of their job so that we could be a more cohesive team. And I love that that was the direction that Theater UCF was going with it and the purpose behind taking those classes.
And so it has helped in a variety of ways. But empathy and listening to people and hearing other people's stories, I imagine that is something that you deal with every day, and that is a skill that you have honed.
I love it. I have realized that I'm that nerd, and so storytelling is kind of the basis of why this happened for me. And it's so fun and amazing how literally on the daily I realize how things that like JJ Rosella taught us, right? He's the one who opened the door to Joseph Campbell's work for me. Um, and Tom did a whole entire presentation on Joseph Campbell and Star Wars and how Joseph Campbell is the reason that Star Wars exists. And Joseph Campbell is narrative theory. And so just bringing it all together and realizing that storytelling is how we as humans communicate. And that was the whole entire point that Joseph Campbell had. That's how myths were created, and they were to teach us lessons. And then fables became more of the modern concept of it, but we still have them even to this day. And so the idea that we tell a story and how we tell it changes how we feel about it. Um, Narrative therapy is therefore, who would have seen it coming, my favorite right, of all of the therapeutic theories, because ultimately it's about how we see ourselves and how we see our stories. And oftentimes, changing the narrative so that we have the power and that we are the main character of our own stories. Because a lot of times, people don't even see that of themselves. They don't even feel that confident in themselves. So I love that it gives that power to the individual and they get to kind of reframe their existence in a more positive, empowered way.
So, how do you think your narrative changed about yourself? So, your background is not just theater, but you worked in education, you worked in
Mm-hmm.
theme parks, all of this before you went and became a counselor. I mean, how was your how was your narrative shaped, and how do you think it changed depending on what you were doing?
So, I mean, honestly, that's why I feel like things have finally gotten to a point where everything makes sense, where who I am and my values are finally coming into shape, even in my career. And so the reality that I worked in a theme park. So it's interesting and fun because just like you mentioned, acting one, realizing that a lot of my peers in my career never really had to be open and extroverted. And so a lot of them, I was the most open and it actually weirds them out a little bit. And I'm like, that's because y'all never had to take acting one as part of your college degree. You know what I mean? Like, you never had to push those boundaries. You never had to like do yoga and open up your body with Kate Ingram, like they don't. So I feel like that was actually an advantage because a lot of times, especially younger counselors, it's imposter syndrome, and there's a lot of things that they fear not being able to really speak on with people because they don't have the experience. And so the more diverse your experience is, I feel like it benefits you. So that theme park work, right? I had to learn how to talk to anybody from anywhere in literally the world and make a connection somehow. And so that definitely helped build my ability to connect with people and de-escalation skills, crisis management, all of it, because it is just about figuring out what the person is trying to achieve in the moment and then helping them see that.
You just described what it is like as a stage manager
Right.
sometimes.
Exactly.
So there are more parallels than you would think between a
So
stage
many.
manager and a counselor.
You have no idea, girl. So yes, I could literally write a dissertation on it.
You should.
I
Maybe you
that's
should.
hey.
Okay, so so theme park, schools, theater, and then you became a mother.
Yeah. So that was um that was a journey. And honestly, that's also something that I've considered even like writing a script or a book about, because the idea that just of my peers, like me and my three best friends, we had completely different plans of motherhood and then completely different experiences in that journey. And so the reality that I knew I wanted to be a mom. So I knew that technically speaking, that meant the steps in my journey needed to include finding a spouse, getting married, making sure I have a home, making sure we're ready and prepared for that. And but nowhere in my experience or expectations did I plan to have miscarriages.
Mm.
Nobody really warns you about that in school when they're giving you the sex ed talk. It's always be careful, be careful, be careful, because it's so easy to get pregnant. They never, ever talk about how difficult it can be to get pregnant or how just pregnancy itself can be so fragile, because everyone always makes it sound like if you look at a boy wrong, you're going to get pregnant and then you're going to be stuck with that kid for the rest of your life, blah, 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 blah. So it was interesting how, I mean, so one of my best friends from college, who you know, she she found out she couldn't, and that devastated me, and I can't even imagine how much it devastated her, but it has definitely changed who she is, how she functions, and it's, as her friend, also affected how I support her, because I know that that's something that she always wanted. And so that's what I mean by being a female, and like, we make choices. We think we know what we want as far as motherhood, but then the universe sometimes changes that story for us. We don't always get to be in control of it. And so it's been very different options for all of us. I wanted kids. I was lucky enough, even after the two miscarriages, I switched doctors, and magically I was able to have two living children. So, live births, as they clinically call it. But, one of my friends straight up was just like, no, I'm good. The idea of getting pregnant weirded her out, and she didn't want it. She was like, the idea of something being inside me, like, nope, I'm good. I'll just be a great aunt. And I was like, cool, you do that. She's happy with her cat. And then my other friend put her career first, and she hit that point or stage in life where it was like, I gotta do it now or never. And that's where she kind of is right now. And so it's definitely motherhood, and being a female, let alone a professional on top of it, is so much. And there's so much there, fertility, all of it, that affects us. And it does affect our career because it affects us mentally and emotionally, and how we identify as a female, and feeling like maybe we're failing if we don't provide children, right? And so it's such a big conversation to have. And just like you said before we started, we have half an hour, but we could breeze through that in 2 seconds. That's exactly what it is. There's so much there to talk about. Because just even my own existential crashes when I was having miscarriages, because they told me that we couldn't find out why until I had a third one. And I was like, so you want me to do this again? You want me to know that there was a living human in me, and now that human is dead and my body's going to purge it? I was like, you freaking do it. You know what I'm saying? And it sounds so insensitive, and that's also a bigger conversation on healthcare. And so that's why the fact that World Health Day is about maternal and newborn health, I feel like, is so relevant, and it's so timely. And being able to have these conversations, and the idea that I didn't find out until I had miscarriages that 1 in 5 pregnancies, so 20% of pregnancies, end in miscarriage. Who told anybody that in sex ed? You know what I'm saying? And so the crash of that occurring, and then finding out afterwards, and so many moms of my students at the time, because I was working in high school, luckily are saints, and they normalized it for me. They were like, girl, I had one between this kid and that kid, and I had another one after. They helped me feel less broken. And that's females supporting females through that journey and process, and acknowledging that, and normalizing is what we call it in mental health, is so necessary. But I feel like people shy away from those conversations because they scare people so bad. They think that it's contagious, or they think that if they know about it, it's going to happen. Well, we know about cancer. Not everybody's going to get cancer, but it's better to know about it than to shy away from it and be scared of it. So, yes, I love you nodding the whole time. I feel
You're
this.
right.
Out.
You're right. But I mean, what do you think? So when you think back on that period of time in your life, and now knowing what you know now, and the experience that you have, and the training that you have, what would you have told yourself? What would have been different for you?
That's so honestly, there are so many other things. Because I also had, in an extended friend group, a young woman who experienced finding out that her baby would not survive outside the womb and having to make that choice. And she didn't find out until the ultrasound that's about 20 weeks in, right? We call it the gender one, but it's the anatomical, where they're looking for all the organs and checking all the boxes, making sure all the things are there. And my doctor actually was part of a local organization that was doing support and fundraising and support groups for women who were experiencing those situations or fertility issues or just having pregnancy health and maternal health issues. So I think that is what ultimately we need more of, and we need to be more present and vocal about it and not afraid to have those conversations, because the idea that we as a species, we as humans, we rely on this health more than anything. We can't be here if we don't understand it and we don't keep it moving forward. Um, so that's what I think is the most important. And like I said, the moms who came forward and were honest with me and willing to share, that's why honestly I'm so open about it. And I have friends who are aware from going through it with me, knowing me during those times, but also just in general, that I'm more than willing to talk to anybody anytime. I had a friend reach out because she was concerned she was experiencing one, and I just talked her through it and like, it'll be okay. You got pregnant. That's half the battle, right? Like, it's okay. And my ex and I, we even discussed the alternatives because we both really wanted to be parents. So the reality that you don't have to biologically have a child in order to be a parent, that there are other ways to go about it. There's so many kids in need who need parents in safe homes, that we were ready to talk about adoption too. So I've also known people who have gone through the adoption process. Um, so all of that, having those conversations, and not necessarily just when you hit that stage of life, actually adding them into part of our sex ed, part of our psych, part of all of those other courses that are kind of mandatory and we should be having more of. But as I said, a lot of people, it's just they think it's morbid or they're scared of it and they don't want to have those conversations because they're kind of sad. So, but helping girls know, like, this is reality, but it's okay. Like, you're still a woman, you are still feminine, you are still all of the things, whether you choose to be a mother or whether you're capable of being a mother or not, right? And you can still play a maternal role in people's lives, and knowing those options so that we still feel fulfilled as females.
It's very important. I mean, we know that community is everything. And when you
Mhm.
have a community of people like you that are here to support you, it just allows you to go further. So let's fast forward a little bit. So you have two kids who
Mhm.
look exactly like you. And um, one of them, you have a daughter.
Yes.
How do you um, how do you talk to her about your life experiences? And, what do you hope for her that is different than what you experienced, in college and beyond?
Honestly, that's it's a fun, being a co-parent is a first step, because my ex and I have very different opinions and views, which may or may not be why we're together. But like, that idea of this right here, right? The fact that I cut off my hair, that was not his favorite. What is ironic is that my daughter loves it. And every time I do it, she wants the same haircut as mommy. And my ex absolutely draws the line at her hair being at chin length. And I'm just like, okay. And so one day I said to him very bluntly, do you want your daughter's perception of her gender to be attached to her hair? Because that's what you're doing right now. I'm not mad about it. I just want you to process that she is now thinking I'm not a girl if I don't have long hair, which we all know is not true. The other reality, which you know, but I cut my hair off literally all the time. The fact that it was as long as it was a shock, but I grow it out just to cut it off and donate it. That is literally who I am as a person. And so this haircut and this length is pretty standard for me. And so I've never had an issue with people misunderstanding my gender because of it. They might question my sexuality, but they don't misinterpret me as a female, right? I'm very feminine still. So my daughter is going through that phase of she wears my sweatshirts, which cover her whole existence. And it does concern me because I'm afraid that she is trying to cover up some of her development because of the stage of life. She is 10 going on 11. So she's hitting that point and trying to help her with the body positivity concepts, right? Because I remember, girl, I'm sure you do too, the fun of going from like being a kid to being an early adolescent to a teen, and just I couldn't keep up with where things were happening. So, but trying to help her understand, especially now, fashion's so much easier to do. Walmart, Target, it's more accessible, Amazon, but that we can work with whatever growth is going on in her body and helping her feel like she can be whoever she needs to be. She's extremely artistic, so that's the strength that I'm pulling right now. She's very creative. Yes. If I could get her to read, I would send her to acting stuff, but she's not. Reading is not her favorite.
Well,
She
let's say she stays in the arts. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where you and I landed for a
Yes.
while. So you sometimes in your videos, if you follow Keri on Instagram, she'll mention her daughter and she'll either be in the room or she'll say things like, my daughter is watching or my daughter is listening. I mean, if you decide or to show this to your daughter or if she is watching, I mean, what would you want to tell her if she decides to stay in something creative? If she decides to go in the arts and then wants to be a mother, what would you tell her?
Girl, so you're already here with me. So I have a friend, she's my current tattoo artist. She literally went to art school. She went to art school, she became an art teacher. Her sister became a tattoo artist. Now they own their own shop together, and it's in the back of the salon that her mother is a hairstylist at. I know. Yes. And this is like, I have literally told her
Amazing.
with all my heart. I'm like, girl, you are who I want my daughter to know so that she realizes she can be her own boss. She can follow her artistic and creative inspirations and drive, and she can do well for herself, right? Because we all know tattoos are popular, they make decent money, but it also gives her that she is doing her own art and like having it at galleries. So it gives her so much freedom to be her own person and follow her own projects. So I am, and just like you and my other friends, Lily's out there, right, doing stuff. She's doing educational, but she's done other things in the technical world before. She worked at the rep. So having those people in her life, Kelly's over at Westgate working for the foundation, the charitable foundation. The idea that we've all taken our creative things and translated them into careers, and that careers that look businessy don't have to be scary, right? Finding those not behind the desk jobs that still make our little chaotic hearts happy, right? With the show must go on concepts. So just having her be around ladies who are strong like that and have diverse backgrounds at the same time, though, Devorah's over in Utah was the costume shop head and manager for the Hale for years. So I luckily am surrounded by so many creative ladies who have decided to love me and keep me in their lives that they are my tribe that I'm keeping around my daughter so that she feels these things. Because my son, I love and adore, he is more of the analytical brain because he is spectrum. So he's very black and white, but he loves anime. He loves a lot of creative things, but I don't see him being, he likes order, I like chaos. So we're on that end of the spectrum ourselves. So he's going to be good behind a computer, behind a desk. It's his happy place. My daughter needs to run amok, literally, figuratively, all of it. So, but knowing those things, seeing their strengths and their skill sets, and then helping them reframe them into practical things that, we can still find career paths in, right? Because that's also part of my job as a mental health counselor is just helping people try to see a hope, try to see a purpose in their skill sets and their experiences. I mean, I've helped others try to see that you have this experience in substance abuse that I couldn't pay to have, right? And there are people who that's one of the first things I get from people with substance abuse histories is, well, you don't know. And so helping others see that and be like, you could take that experience and flip it into something positive, even if it's not as a career, but just in the community, right? Like doing different events, speaking at different things, helping organize different groups. So, I mean, that's kind of the benefit of having my specific education and career field is the idea that I can use it on my kids as that little shortcut, like the reframe ability. I can reframe almost anything into something. So
I mean, that is a stage manager taught skill, reframe and
exactly.
translate to something else. So we are almost out of time. As you said, you and I
Yeah.
could have gone on for a very long time. One more question I have for you.
Hmm.
This past March, we did a whole series about women that inspire because we think it's very important to lift each other up and to celebrate not just our accomplishments, but what makes us special to other people. And so, in closing, who inspires you?
I feel like it's a setup, but I'm going to take it. My current hero is Dr. Ryan Eisler, who created partnership systems and partnerism. And ultimately, she is a fabulous lady who survived the Holocaust. She and her family fled Austria when she was 9 to South America. And through that experience and the world after World War II, she was able to identify that dominance and the pursuit of dominance was what was at the core of that unnecessary situation. I'm not, yep. So the idea that we as humans keep repeating history, she and her colleagues worked. She's the reason why Da Vinci Code happened. She and her colleagues, they reassessed symbols, historic symbols, through a non-patriarchal lens, right? Through a general lens, even with a feminist angle. And so the idea that she was able to then retranslate these concepts, look at the idea and fact that even historic cultures and civilizations, they understood the necessity of partnership between the gender roles, right? So I feel like we've had this wisdom for decades and we just haven't been using it. And it's so relevant and it's so necessary. So she is my current hero. I'm obsessed. I've been buying all of her books. The Real Wealth of Nations is the one that I'm going to drop as my biggest suggestion right now, especially in our current 2025 America. But the idea of a caring economics, of caring communities, that we need to value caring careers more than we do. That includes daycare, right? All the way down the line of just understanding that those tiny humans need to be nurtured, right? But humans need to be cared for throughout the lifespan and what that actually takes out of workers.
That sounds right. I love it.
Yeah,
Well, we are at time.
you know,
Thank you so much for
of course,
joining today. Um,
anytime.
we are going to post this interview on our YouTube channel. So subscribe if you want to see more. Follow Keri. She's on Instagram and on LinkedIn. Her Instagram handle is in the chat here. Thank you so much for this
Anytime.
conversation today. And we will have lots more of these coming up. So see you soon.
Yay.